La dernière fois que j'ai parlé ici à la Basilique
The
Notre-Dame
last
de
time that I
Montréal,
spoke at the Basilique de
il y a
Notre-Dame in
24 ans,
Montreal was
au
24
funérailles
years
de mon
ago
père.
when I spoke
Alors, tout
for my father.
naturellement, aujourd'hui, mes
So
pensées vont
naturally,
aux enfants de Brian.
Today,
Ben,
my thoughts go out
Marc,
to the children
Nicolas,
of Brian,
et
Ben,
Caroline, qui
Mark,
vient
Nicholas,
de
and
livrer un
Caroline,
éloge
who just delivered
extraordinairement touchant.
an extraordinarily touching eulogy.
Pour tout le monde, Brian Mulroney, c'était
To everyone,
Monsieur le Premier
Brian
ministre.
Mulroney was Mr. Prime Minister, but to you,
C'était papa.
he was Dad.
Et bien sûr, pour Mila,
Of course, for
c'était
Mila,
un époux, un confident,
he
un
was
partenaire
her
inébranlable.
husband, unshakable partner,
Brian
and confidant.
once quipped that at l'Université Laval there was no PM 101 class to prepare him for his future role. Although after he left politics, if such a class existed, he would have been the ideal person to teach it. One of his first lessons would be that winning is important and it's okay to enjoy it. However, winning for winning's sake cannot be the only end game. First and foremost, Brian was motivated by service. He was motivated by leadership, by getting the big things right. Big things like free trade, fighting to raise the standard of living for Canadians and for millions of people, first through the Canada-US FTA and then through NAFTA. Big things like standing up against apartheid in South Africa. As a great persuader, Brian leveraged Canada's position in the Commonwealth to lead the efforts that helped free Nelson Mandela. Brian a aussi accompli de grandes choses pour l'environnement.
Brian also accomplished great things for the environment,
pour lutter contre les pluies acides,
including fighting acid
pour
rain
réparer le trou dans la
and
couche d'ozone.
to repair the hole in the ozone layer.
Repairing the ozone layer. That showed that for Brian, the sky was not the limit. He led us with the ambition necessary to actually fix the sky. Oui, il voyait grand.
Yes,
Mais le
he
petit gars de
saw
Bécomo
things big,
savait garder
but the
les
little
deux
guy
pieds
from Bécomo
fermement sur
knew
terre.
how to keep his 2 feet firmly
Que ce
planted
fut
on the
en
ground.
faisant des longs shifts comme ouvrier ou
Whether working
camionneur
long
pour payer
shifts
ses études,
as a trucker to
ou en
pay for his
négociant un accord
education,
de libre-échange
or
avec le pays le
negotiating a
plus
free trade
puissant du
agreement
monde,
with the most powerful country in the
travaillait
world,
toujours
he
aussi fort.
always worked equally as hard.
Of course, of all the great things he accomplished, none brought him more pride and joy than the loving family he built with Mila, rooted in values of hard work, gratitude, and resilience. Resilience being particularly important, because, as his opponents knew well, Brian was never afraid to take on a fight, even though he knew that there would be criticisms and attacks that stung. His family saw that up close. But as he put it himself, leaders must have vision, and they must find the courage to fight for the policies that will give that vision life. Leaders must govern not for easy headlines in 10 days, but for a better Canada in 10 years. And even when times got tough, Brian always stayed generous, charming, and very funny. He once shared a story about the time he offered comfort to Ronald Reagan, who was enduring a decline in his approval ratings, by saying, "Ron, I don't know how to break this to you, but Margaret Thatcher, Helmut Kohl, and I combined don't have your 59% approval rating." We all know how Brian loved to win, yet his most cherished victories were nonpartisan. Those moments where the true winner was Canada itself, because he loved this country with all his heart. And he didn't just love Canada in the abstract sense, he loved Canadians He loved hearing their stories. He loved connecting with people. And he was incredibly generous with everyone. In fact, while we were reminiscing this past week, my mum shared with me that he had reached out to her occasionally over the decades to have friendly, heartfelt conversations. I had had no idea, but I was not surprised, because this authenticity in his many conversations with me and in his advice to me is something I always deeply valued. Brian me conseillait souvent pendant qu'on
Brian would
renégociait l'ALENA.
often advise me when NAFTA was being renegotiated during uncertain times. In one particularly turbulent week, he reminded me to stay the course. I can still hear him telling me on the phone, Justin, remember what your father used to say, that it's at the end of the evening that the best dancers are recognized. It was the sound of discipline, of determination, and perseverance. Today, it is the end of the evening for a giant. But we will always remember that as a great dancer and choreographer, he laid the foundations for generations to come. It's the end of the evening for a giant, but the music goes on. And his memory lives in all of us, each in our own way, to continue the work for an ever more ambitious and better Canada. Thank you.